So hello everyone, welcome to the African region session. My name is Amanda Obidike and I'm from Lagos, Nigeria. So today I will be your MC for this session. Thanks to the Global Community Bio Summit and the organizers for giving us this opportunity to put this together. This is a platform where we share and grow with our unique values towards making science and STEM accessible for people in Africa. And we called ourselves the African Voices because we are. So not to take too much of your time, we'll be diving soon into our community talk with four phenomenal women in STEM. And we'll be covering different aspects of STEM education in Africa. And that's our team too. But before I introduce myself, please, or I introduce them, please kindly comply with our naming convention so that we can identify you accordingly. You can also visit our website if you have not. There you will find all the Bio Summit notes and materials, participant details, and so on. Please also feel free to connect with the speakers. They are all on Slack, the Slack channel. So I would also like to thank the Community Bio Summit sponsors and partners who made this event happen. I would like to spotlight our panelists and our session support team. So for our African voices, please, I would like Stephanie Okeefe to introduce herself to everyone. So Stephanie, please tell us your full names, your country, and what you would like to be sharing with us.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm Stephanie Okeefe from Kenya and founder of a science engagement and communication initiative known as Under the Microscope. And I'm also a microbiologist. My hopes for today is just to understand the landscape of STEM education in Africa. And I think from there, because of the few hours we have, is just catalyze the discussion and form a group or a project later on that we can follow up after this to continue with the discussions in this forum.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Yes. So next, I'll be calling on Dr. Susan Moyenga. So Dr. Susan, please can you unmute yourself and give us a brief introduction?
Thanks, Amanda. My name, as you've heard, is Susan Moyenga. I am from Kenya. I was born and raised in the western part of this country. I went to school here for the most part and went away for graduate school. I just got back. And today I'm really excited to be part of this panel. I feel like I'm quite unqualified, but really excited to have this conversation, at least even to initiate a conversation about STEM in Africa and led by young people who are very, very involved in transforming what the status quo is here. I will particularly talk about things related to policy among my other colleagues, and looking forward to engage.
Yeah, thank you. So the next person I'll be calling is Dr. Abigail Wilson. Abigail, please, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Global Bio Summit, for this opportunity to be here today. So my name is Abigail Wilson. I was born and basically raised in Ghana, and my family relocated to the US in 2003. I still do lots of charity works in Ghana, and also I am the founder and president of Future Leadership and Mentorship Program for female juvenile inmates in Ghana. I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you. I really look forward to gaining a lot from your session as well. So kudos to our session support team. I would like Olato Balogun to introduce himself to the audience.
Hello, everybody. Ola from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm a DIY biologist like everybody here, just a DIY. And I'm so happy to be here. Happy to support the 2022 fellows to have a successful meeting. Ciao.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, and the last person, please, I would like you to meet Nadine. She gave a beautiful presentation of her work in Cameroon in the plenary session. So Nadine, over to you, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Nadine Mo from Cameroon at Mboalap, Yaoundé. So I'm really excited to be a part of this committee of great women who are looking forward to putting in their impact into the society. Thank you all.
Okay, thanks guys. So let's just dive in. So our first community presentation will be Dr. Abigail. So I would like to pose a question to Dr. Abigail. Abigail, you are really conversant in STEM curriculum and community resources in regards to STEM and STEM education. Please, can you tell us about what the future looks like for STEM in regards to STEM curriculum and community resources in Africa?
Thank you so much, Amanda, for that question. So, STEM school curriculum right now in Africa, the African Development Bank reported that less than 25% of Africans, highly educated individuals, are in STEM. Only 25%. The rest are basically invested in, social sciences and humanities. So what are some of the reasons why we are seeing that? There is a lack of well-driven STEM-tailored school programs or curriculum in the African region. Right from primary school through high school, most of the schools do not have a STEM-tailored program. They do not have HABs or robotic labs for students to be able to explore their skills. And then another one reason is because of the societal misconception that most parents, most families, most teachers assume that for you to be able to participate in a STEM-driven program, you need to be highly intelligent, number one. And number two, you need to have a passion or desire to want to be like a doctor or a scientist. And so for me personally, to demystify all of that, I like to create more awareness and let educators, certain government organizations in Ghana, let them know that no, STEM basically does not mean a person is going to be a scientist or a medical doctor. Basically, STEM equips students, equips the younger ones with critical thinking skills, analytical skills, and then innovative skills. And I'm sure all of us, we will agree that these are the fundamental, essential skills that a nation needs, right? It's imperative for nation building. It's imperative for economic development. It's imperative so that we as Africans can also compete on a global market level. So one of the ways that I personally have worked on promoting or advocating for STEM-driven programs or curriculums in our educational system in Ghana is by personally starting, my own personal curriculum, which is STEM-driven, where students have access to robotics kits, DEX kits and stuff like that to challenge them mentally, and also creating that awareness. So I started this year with the female juvenile inmates because they do not, when you go to that juvenile center, they lack STEM-driven programs. They're just not basic things. And I think as individuals, we all have certain inherited skills in us, and we just need to be given that opportunity to explore that. The African Union established a 2063 agenda on education. And their hope was that by the end of 2063, Africa should have citizens that are well invested in STEM and educated. And so I think for us to be able to obtain that, it would start by us investing in the curriculum, the school curriculum. It's so imperative, right from middle school. We don't have to wait till people get into university before we introduce STEM tailored programs into our curriculum. And the schools that already have STEM tailored programs from middle school to high school, they can improve on some of their activities by investing more into STEM workshops and STEM hubs and labs. Another thing that I was going to talk about in regards to the community resources, the UN Educational System and Culture Organization reported in 2018 that only 22% of primary schools in Africa has access to electricity, which is kind of, it's not encouraging at all, you know, just 20%. Why is this important? We need electricity to have access to the internet. You know, most of the educational systems run on having access to electricity. If you go home and you want to read what you've been taught in school, you need access to light to be able to do that. So that's also one of the major community resources. The community lacks infrastructure such as electricity and water supply. Another major barrier in regards to the community resources that we lack resources that keeps, you know, staff or individuals that are STEM driven, people that are equipped with professional skills. We are not able to keep them in Africa. So most of them end up, you know, going abroad. Why is that? So most people do not have access to actually work on the skills that they've been taught locally in Africa. So they end up traveling to foreign countries like the West, just so they can maximize their skills and potential and drive for the STEM industry. So that's one major barrier. And the UN reported that every year about 70,000 highly skilled professionals in Africa great to the Western world. So that is like a big deal for me personally. Let me see. Another way, so some of the ways that I came up with that can help us, you know, bridge that gap. Government and local organizations must make intentional effort to have STEM tailored educational programs in the communities. You know, they must invest in STEM hubs, STEM labs, STEM workshops. We can also try and do or implement STEM hubs and STEM labs and stuff like that to educate the people in our communities. The last thing that I was also gonna speak on is the African Union also reported that most African countries contribute either zero or little to the STEM industry or science and research. The entire Africa, most of them contribute only zero and too little, you know, of their GDP to STEM and research and science. So in order to bridge that gap, that means government has to change. Government has to, you know, get involved more and financially support educational resources and STEM-driven programs to help bridge that gap. And as individuals, we can also do the same. Personally, I don't believe in always waiting for the government. If you can do something, why not? You know, if you have the resources, if you've acquired expertise and skills from this global bio summit. Thank you guys. I can't thank you guys enough. If you have acquired certain skills from here, use it to implement programs, use it to implement organizations that can help the younger ones. I personally did a COVID-19 testing booth this year around April. And I did that on my own together with a lab in Ghana. So we built a COVID testing booth and we donated that to one of the major hospitals in Ghana to help, you know, combat the COVID-19. And interestingly, after we made it, most people were asking whether we imported the testing booth. And I was like, no, we did that right here in Ghana. So it's important for people to actually see that we can do things, that things can be done. And it's so important for the younger ones to also see us, you know, not just talk, but actually put action into whatever that we are saying or talking about. I think that will be all for me. I'll hand it over to Amanda.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love that, Abby. So I really buy into all you're saying. It's the same thing that we are trying to integrate here. We call it the Africa by us for us approach. It's something that we are developing local content, something that is relevant to the continent, something that is also up to date, because you realize that we have very old curriculum that does not fit into the present, our present century now. And also, I really like all your intake. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I'll be moving to Abigail and, Dr. Susan. So I know that Dr. Susan would like to address STEM policies in Africa. So Dr. Susan, please, can you tell us some of these existing challenges in Africa as regards STEM policies, and how we can drive sustainable solutions in execution of these policies? Because you find out that we design very wonderful policies in the continent, but we do not have good execution stage. We do not have good M&E, in evaluating these policies. So please shed more light on this, on like where we are going, and sustainable strategies we can integrate into STEM for Africa.
Thanks, Amanda. I have to apologize beforehand, as I've done before, that my internet is neither here nor there. So it's quite possible that I may disappear somewhere in the middle of my talk. Thank you so much, Amanda. I think, so I've spent a couple of weeks thinking about policies much more in depth in a way that I hadn't really thought about before. And I think it's almost shocking sometimes that, in spite of the lack of really explicit policies regarding STEM or education in general in Africa, that we are somehow still, forging forward and still, somehow making things happen. I think that you're right, Amanda, when you said that, we have this really amazing, seemingly amazing, theoretically amazing policies that don't seem to be implemented, and sometimes even at all. And so, it begs the question, what are those policies? What's limiting the implementation? Are they wrong? Do they seem good on paper, but they, either we are completely incapable of implementing them, or we just have no goodwill to get things moving forward. Some of the very basic things that I think that we take for granted is that, for instance, STEM education is offered almost exclusively across the whole continent in English. If you exclude the few Francophonie countries in the West and perhaps in Central Africa, STEM education, with the need to be globally competitive, is English taught. It has to be English consumed. So imagine the majority of Africans that are excluded simply by the promise of how difficult this has to be, because it has to be offered in this foreign language, right? And you would think then that one of the very primary policies should be, how do we make this accessible to everybody by language? There's nothing more excluding than not being able to converse, to understand, to synthesize information in the language that you know. And for us, this has been a huge, huge problem, and our governments are not really thinking about it. For the longest time, Tanzania, for instance, offered almost all its subjects from high school in Swahili, which is their national language, and wonderful, right? And until recently, when they changed to English. What does that mean for its community? All these young people looking and saying, well, that has got to be complex. That has got to be really difficult, because I have to learn a language, and then I have to learn to synthesize really complex concepts in that foreign language. And so you'd think that's a primary thing to consider. And I think that that's something that we should keep fighting for, that education, basic education, STEM education should be offered in every language that Africans understand, that Africans speak in. Some of the other basic things that we kind of take for granted until later, when you look back retrospectively, you realize, well, this could be better, is that we don't get to study STEM in the traditional sense of that word until high school in almost every African curriculum. There is no introduction whatsoever of STEM in primary school. We learn math, but that's just, well, math is important, and all your teachers tell you math is important, but we don't get to see a microscope. If you're lucky to see a microscope in high school, you have that infrastructure. That essentially, that's what the curriculum dictates. That's the first time in high school. You're already 14, and you had all this opportunity from the time that you started your grade 1 at maybe 6 or 5 or 7, that you could have already started immersing yourself in STEM and developing your curiosity, and perhaps even teaching our teachers how to teach kids at that age about STEM. So the fact that we have not legislated at any capacity, not a single African country has legislated that, to introduce STEM at a much earlier age so that kids can already, be prompted, they can be inspired to think about STEM at a very early age. I think it really is a huge, huge problem. Some other thing that, and Abby brought this up, and I think that Amanda tangentially mentioned, is that the numbers are staggering about the women who end up in STEM, regardless of where along the pipeline, whether it's high school or tertiary education or graduate school, the the numbers, how they decline from general education to STEM. So a lot of African cultures have unfortunately relegated STEM education as a male dominion. And it's not so much that, it's not even, oh, this is hard for women, they shouldn't do it. It's just, well, this is for men. It's almost a, it's a fact. It should be taken as is. And the government, this is just one of those things that, Amanda, as you said, we have this glorious policies that are supposed to indicate, perhaps in government structures, in companies that exist within government frameworks, that you need to have a 30% representation. Nobody thinks about these numbers within the education system. Nobody says, well, schools have to do whatever it takes to ensure that we have this much representation of women and men, of girls and boys in the different subjects they're studying. If it gets so difficult to ensure that those numbers can be met, because for majority of the countries that have a wide array of subjects that kids have to choose from in high school, as I said, that's when STEM education is introduced. Often it's voluntary, right? You choose whether you're going to go on the sociology kind of track, or you're going to go the science track. Now, if it's difficult to make the numbers work when you're having them do it voluntarily, then perhaps what you need to do is to ensure everybody does everything. I'm sorry, you've got to make the numbers work. You have to try and ensure that women, girls from very early on stay on the STEM track if it's not working in a voluntary basis. But we really haven't thought about it in a policy way to ensure that girls stay in STEM tracks. But I'm going to step back and think about education overall, and Abby really made some great points here. Our tertiary enrollment is incredibly low. Africa is at about 7%. So education, higher education, is incredibly elite. It is only accessible to a very narrow minority. And this in itself is the greatest challenge. As we know, STEM, it is complex. We do want people to have, this creative way of thought and critical thinking, but it takes training, it takes dedicated training, as we all do know. And if we are having enrollment at 7%, compare this to 72% in the US or 30% in China. I mean, how are we going to make it? They say that even if we build 200 universities every year for the next 15 years, we just couldn't beat those numbers. We couldn't prepare for what the world needs, what Africa needs tomorrow. And we as a continent will make up the largest majority of the working population over the next 30, 40 years, because we are the youngest continent. And yet we are completely unprepared for the skills that are needed. At 7% enrollment in tertiary levels, STEM even becomes, it's a non sequitur. It's hard to think about STEM when you can't even think about education as a whole in a way that's equitable. And so a few things have been done. Institutions such as ALU, the African Leadership University, has taken an absolutely, a very different approach. They are valuing peer-to-peer education. They have taken a big stance on job shadowing. So you're spending a whole year, working when you're in your, a sophomore or third year in your college. So it's not too dependent on this teacher-student ratio, and hence so limited by the fact that there's just not enough space. There's not enough professors. There's not enough teachers to teach. But if you can have students teach each other, if you can have professionals teach students in their workplace, perhaps we can start moving this conversation forward.
I think I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Susan. I really enjoyed all that you said. It's something that I feel we should just go back to our scoreboard and start looking at how we can drive this differently because these problems exist. So thank you very much. Please, apologies for the background song. There's a party going on downstairs and it's not something that I can stop. So I'm really sorry. Yeah, so I'll be passing it on to Stephanie. So Stephanie is really an amazing person, and she has been addressing this underrepresentation of women and girls in STEM. So Stephanie, going by your work in education, STEM for young women and girls in marginalized communities, please, how can we define education differently in a way that it can serve the grassroots, the marginalized, and these young women and girls?
Thank you, Amanda. I think the two speakers, Dr. Susan and Dr. Abigail, have touched on actually what I'm going to, how I'm going to start my discussion, which is with the young population, the young African population, and also the education system. So my presentation will sound more of a diagnostic approach, but I think it is very important for us to understand the African landscape so that we know what specifically we're looking at and where exactly do we start. And if you look at education, as I usually say, what's the importance of education? For me, I see it's a development tool to navigate life and also make the best out of it. So make informed decisions, have chances for opportunities, and also economic development, and also be able to just live within a society that's always evolving with different beliefs and structures and culture. And if you look now, and with that country is very diverse, large population. So let's look at the population that needs access to exercise the right to education. By 2015, in
Stephanie, it sounds like you're starting to cut up.
Percent of it is below sub-Saharan Africa. Sorry, let me just, sorry, internet issues. I will cut off my video.
Good idea.
So I hope you can hear me. And I was, okay. So I was saying if you look at sub-Saharan African population, it's growing. Area.
Sorry, I think it's the network. Please, apologies. It's one of the things we
and the African population, people in the world. Yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, now.
Yeah, I really apologize. Sorry, I think it's internet issues. But just what I'm trying to put across is I'm saying that Africa is one of the fastest growing continent in the world, therefore having a very young population. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, please.
Okay, so Amanda, can we move to the next speaker and get back to me while I try to sort out the internet issues?
Okay, so I'm actually the last person.
Okay.
So I don't know, would you like me to proceed?
What are the issues?
Okay,
internet issue.
Okay, yes. Okay, so sorry about that. So I'm going to be talking about STEM education as a tool for economic validation and creating jobs of the future. So I really loved what Abby said and Susan. It was also insightful. We're still saying the same thing, but you know, we're talking about different strategies in integrating this across our sector. It's a clear economic factor in production of economic prosperity and creating jobs. So first of all, we know that education contributes to the economic growth of a nation, like producing human capital, better livelihood, the ability to save money, or also solve a need. And economically, socially, culturally, and politically responsible life. It helps students to put their lives in order. So, which means that you know how to apportion things. And in a recent survey, it was said that STEM education will contribute to more than $269 million of economic output by 2023 in Africa. So that's huge. So, but if science and technology actually facilitates the economy, then there is an essential economic imperative for 21st century STEM education to make students aware of possible outcomes of their actions as intending scientists and technologists, and also empowering students to assess and explore lucrative STEM pathways. So, like Susan said, it's really sad in the continent that 6 in 10 students do not have an idea of what a microscope looks like. They just see it like in a diagram. They haven't touched it. They haven't felt it. So you can see that we already have this fragmented institution already. Now, on the other hand, they do not even have an idea on the numerous and lucrative fields that are in STEM. So they just know that, oh, we have a scientist, we have someone that is a data scientist, we have someone that is an agriculturist, and that's all. But they don't know that there is also a deep dive into research. Now, that's a need because now we don't have well-equipped teachers that is ensuring that these students are able to explore wonderful fields in STEM. And if we justify STEM education, we see that it's really an economic imperative towards a demand, considering what the limitations of this imperative might be. And by 2025, we are expecting at least 118 million jobs in Nigeria alone. And these jobs are dependent on skills that are learned in STEM courses and related pathways. You know, like my fellow panelists said, we have a large workforce, but we do not have young Africans that are prepared for it. We just, unfortunately, there is this theoretical approach, this fragmented education institution that is in all countries in Africa. I will give you an example. Olato Balogun may know, in Nigeria, there is this thing that the government did, and they had to scrap it out because it wasn't sustainable. So the government pays a huge amount of money to take West graduating students from the continent. Maybe like they finish the university, they pay a lot of money, they take them to the UK to have like a master's, or to be well groomed. But they found out that when these students are being taken there and they come back, after a year, they leave the country. So now they were at loss because they are investing so much in these young people so that they can come back and give back to the society, or be well qualified medical practitioners. But why are they going back there? There's a brain drain. So it's not just about coming back to practice medicine, but they are coming to a deprived economy. The economy is not too good. The economy cannot really absorb you into that workforce. You find out that you are frustrated on the job, or even if you're on the job, you do not have the adequate resources that can, motivate you to give your best. So I'm saying this because it doesn't just stop at STEM education. It's a whole process. It takes designing wonderful policies that can favor the grassroots. It also requires a change in our education institution. So we had this model where we are training teachers to not just be science teachers, but they can be role models, they can be career counselors, because now most students go to the school and they always have this orientation that maths is so difficult, science is so boring, and the teachers are not even helping matters. So we designed this strategy where we have to ensure that these teachers are motivated on the job, number one, because it's a pass on. If they are not motivated on the job, they cannot transmit, or they cannot move that same knowledge with that same energy to them. So, and we found that it was really difficult because they are already demotivated about, oh, the job is not really paying well, the curriculum is still so old, and etc. But if you look at it, but now, what if these young Africans are equipped with these skills? Maybe if they finish from the school, are they prepared for the workforce? Because we know we do not have this balanced economy that can absorb them. So graduating is one thing, absorbing yourself is another thing into the system. Or are these gained skills for this future of work, do they contribute to a continued GDP for Africa? So I'm saying this because our economic validation should be a round process. It's cutting across our education institution. It's cutting across our curriculum, setting in wonderful curriculum that are relatable to the job market, number one, and applying hands-on. Today, a child just brought a textbook to my brother and said that she would like him to draw I don't know, whether it was one kind of organism or something. And my brother was wondering and said, why would your teacher tell you to draw this? It's your textbook. You already have this diagram on your textbook. So why would they want you to draw this? So it's not like they are making you to draw it so that you can have it on the back of your head, but they are drawing it because they want you to just draw it. So these are the kind of things that we are trying to shape in the economy so that it's a pass on. These people can effectively transition from education to employment, number one. And we should be able to have a strong workforce that can absorb them, because we are tired of young people on a daily leaving the continent, to Western world. Not that I blame them, but it's because the system is so weak. It's not really absorbing them. They don't have like good pay or no resources that can, or machines that can help them on this job. So it's a round process. It's cutting across our education system. It's cutting across policies. It's also cutting across our industries. So yeah, that's just my little 2 cents. I can give this back to Stephanie if she's ready. Hello, Stephanie.
I think so. Sorry, my sincere apologies. Just to resume where I was giving facts, statistics on just the growing population within the African. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you. Your video is frozen. Yes.
Stephanie, we can hear you. Your video is frozen though.
You might want to cut your video and just do audio.
I think we lost her.
Okay, sorry about that. So before she come in, I can see that few people dropped in questions. I will try to visit them. Okay, so David asked, I'm sure this question is targeted to Abigail. Okay, yes, please. Yes.
Hello?
Yes, Stephanie, now we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh God, apologies. Sorry about that. Okay, can we quickly take this question? I
Okay,
think
I'm
this
so
question
sorry.
is posed to Abigail.
I think this is living proof of the issues we are speaking of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Maybe give it a shot now that we have you.
Oh. She's muted now.
I guess Amanda, you could go on.
Yeah, we just have 30 more minutes.
That I would like to pose this question to Abigail. So David Kong asked, what are the strategies to combat these patriarchal structures? So Susan and Abigail, please, if you have insights, can you share?
I personally would think that making deliberate or intentional policies to promote, the girl child education, to promote women in STEM has to be done by the government, by local organizations, and this can be achieved when parents, teachers, educators are informed about the significant outcome in regards to STEM. I think sometimes our local people do not understand that STEM basically helps to shape, the way a person thinks, improving the critical thinking skills, analytical skills, making them innovative. I think that understanding is lacking for most people, and that's why they will not encourage women in science. And then there is also this stereotype that science, anything that has to do with science takes a longer period of time. So like going to medical school or doing research, if we have to invest in STEM research and women are involved, people in the community feel like, oh my gosh, by the time she's done, she wouldn't be able to have kids. She wouldn't be able to get married and stuff like that. So there is that social, unfortunate stigma attached to the STEM. So I think a proper education and awareness to especially people in the community, and then the government also making intentional policies that require schools to make sure that they engage females. Make sure you have 60% of females in the STEM program, or make sure you have 50%. I know in Rwanda, President Paul Kagame, for his parliament, he has a requirement that the system needs to have 50% of women in political power in different departments. And so I think we can emulate that in regards to STEM and make deliberate policies that will attract the young women.
Okay, thank you, Abigail. Personally, I also think mentorship has a role to play. A lot of times these girls need this confidence to launch into the market, to launch into any kind of course that they want. They need this career and academics. Like mentor these girls, however small, however little you give, it plays a great role. So that's just what I think. Susan, I would like to hear from you if you have any contribution on this.
Yeah, I'll make a quick comment. I absolutely agree with what both of you have said. Recently, I've been thinking about what it means to show, because we talk a lot about role models and the lack of role models especially for girls, for women. And it occurred to me that, I could be wrong, but it occurred to me that every time we show a few of them, we show a few successful women, whether it's in positions of power, or say if we're talking about STEM and the hierarchies of it, every time we show just a few of them and how successful they are, I think it's also working in the opposite. It's having the opposite impact. It's reinstating that, that old assumption that really this are not fields for women. Look how few they are. Look, it takes the, supremely genius ones to make it through. And I keep thinking we need to rethink how we present models, and we need to avoid tokenization because it can be seen through all the walls, right? We can see when you're tokenizing them. And these girls, these kids, these young women, they can see that. And so I think Africa specifically, we need to start presenting this differently. I agree with legislating. There's nothing stronger than that. And obviously working on implementation bodies that they're empowered, they can enforce. And I also do strongly believe in punishment. If these organizations, they are required by law to have a certain amount of representation, be it at school level, be it, all the way to the top, and they don't do it, someone should be held responsible. And all the patriarchy that's keeping girls back, be it the men that are marrying 14-year-olds, that there should be punishment. And this really, really points at implementation, and enforcement. There has got to be punishment.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. So Stephanie is back online. So we'll give the floor to Stephanie. We hope we don't lose you again.
Yes. Hi, Amanda. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just switch off my video. Just to summarize what I wanted to say, my point of entry to this discussion was looking at the Africa population and seeing by statistics that by 2015 the population will have doubled, and a quarter of the world's population will be living in this continent. So I started my discussion saying that access to education is a basic right. And that is a clear indication that the continent needs to have heavy investment within the education space. And with this increase in population comes in challenges such as demand to health services, food security, transport and communication. And if you look at sustainable development, science, technology, and innovation is at the core. So what does this tell us? That STEM education should be at the priority of any education system, because this is the same population that will need a skilled workforce. This is the same population that will require innovation and also will be the beneficiaries of these services. And if at the education system, or traditionally African education system, is one that generally does not brew innovation. And if you look at STEM, as Dr. Abigail or Susan had indicated, it needs a certain type of infrastructure. And also STEM education as foundation is innovation. So it is clear that Africa needs to invest in homegrown solution. And Dr. Abigail just pointed out the need to invest in research and development, which has been key priority discussions within science, technology, and innovation. But my only issue is that we do this at top level and not look at the foundation system, whereby, for example, in Kenya, look at primary early education level, where this type of education or input or infrastructure and investment and emphasis should be put on. Now, I will put an emphasis on grassroots initiative, which have at the best case studies, I'll call them case studies, on how to make tailored homegrown solutions. So for example, my initiative under the microscope was founded upon whereby I found information or science education was not relatable to what was in the workspace. So how, and later on engaging in that, found that there were still gender inequality issues. And then going back to different issues, and I bet in the community, in this global community space, majority of us have identified specific issues. So how do we take these collective efforts and put to change into policies, into changing education systems, and also how does national development agendas support the grassroots initiative space? And I think the main question I will want to end this discussion is, for the grassroots initiatives, how do we evolve from just community space to expanding in a way whereby we contribute to national agendas? to, for example, in Kenya, like we have the Big Four agenda. How do we move to contributing to and taking a space within the regional agenda, like the Africa Union 2063 global agenda, like the Sustainable Development Goals? And for the national system, how do we support this grassroots community to have even a funding, a policy that supports such an ecosystem, and also a system that supports funding for this grassroots system? Because I think one of the issues is we do not get funding within the continent. And I bet most of you as grassroots initiative founders and contributors have this struggle of, this is something not yet understood within the continent, not yet appreciated within the continent. So how do those two ecosystems come into place and collaborate? And I think that is an entry point of defining education and also contributing to sustainable development within this amazing continent. Thank you.
Yeah. Honestly, I wish this conversation can go on and on and on, but I really love all our inputs. It's been so valuable and it makes sense. Thank you so much. Thank you. We really do appreciate everyone. And please feel free to connect with them on Slack. I'm sure we're all on Slack. So in case if you have more questions that you would like to ask, or you would like to partner or collaborate with any of them, please access them on Slack channel. So I really appreciate everyone. Thank you so much to the technical support. Thank you, David Kong, for joining us today. So yeah, we're done for the day. And I don't know, does anybody have any closing remark to give before we call the day?
Yeah, I would just want to. I just want to add something, because during your discussions and you were talking about girl child education, what's happening in northern Nigeria presently, there's this, I think religion is a major factor in STEM education. There is a civil crisis. There's like it's like a civil war. Let's call it an insurgency, terrorists. They call them Boko Haram. It's like we are against, Boko Haram means against Western education, against them. There are some religions in Africa that wouldn't allow girls go to school. These same religions empowers men to get married to a 10-year-old girl or 11-year-old girl, in which is the normal thing. So I think religion is a very big barrier, not even a relationship with your maker, but religion is a big barrier to STEM education.
Can I add something? Oh, sorry.
Go for it, Steph.
Of course.
Okay, so I think this is where we need to have a holistic approach, because the problem, I think for us in education is we stick to the education aspect of it and forget that there is cultural barriers. So for example, just to pinpoint what you're saying with one of the work we're doing, we do have an initiative known as FGM, Female Genital Mutilation to STEM initiative. And this is cultural barriers. Just the simple you're identifying regional barriers that hinder and have a gender role to participation of women or specific groups to science. And I think now it goes to how do we use science for conflict? How do we use science to influence cultural behavior, to influence religion? And I think it's not as simple as 1, 2, 3, but I think as a science engager, we always say, approach it in a way whereby it's interest for that specific community. And that's where you're able to come in and engage, and the community themselves can decide which ways they want to go about it. And I think that's how it goes, especially when you're dealing with human interaction.
I'd like to add something to, I absolutely agree with you, Stephanie. I was thinking about, when you asked this question, I was thinking about the case of vaccination in different countries and the role that religion played in setting people to be vaccination, and what then governments had been forced to do. And so you find cases, if I can't remember what year this is, but I think early on, maybe in the early 20th century, in the States, local governments, state governments decided to legislate that vaccination would be mandatory. And obviously there were many groups that were opposed to this, and some of them were religion driven. And it could take a legal angle to the whole thing, be it religion, be it culture. What Stephanie has covered about culture, it's the same thing, right? You can look at religion as part of our culture, but there's a reason why we have government, right? It is to protect us, sometimes even from ourselves, and I think that this is one of them. Government has to step in, as we said, legislate, but more importantly, implement and enforce. And I think that what's happening in northern Nigeria, really, it breaks our hearts. Every day you read something about a young girl who's missing, a group of 13-year-olds that are missing, that are pregnant by militia. And you can tell that it's not just religion. This is when the system has failed to protect its own people. Religion becomes an easy excuse as to why that's happening. And I honestly don't think it's the major cause. If government was involved enough, they were invested enough, I think that we could be seeing changes that we are yet to see. And that's the young people, the women in that region, they are crying to their government. And I think that's just, religion becomes an excuse.
True, Susan, thank you. Let me just quickly chip this in before David says and we conclude. So I really agree. So religion is not necessarily an excuse, because I see it as a government that doesn't love its people. When you love your people, there are basic necessities that people should not be deprived of, especially in this 21st century. But I can tell you for a fact that girls are deprived of education in the northern region, not to talk more of STEM. So you go to these regions, you find out a lot of exclusions. We've had several programs that are there. We come back all tears up, heartbroken, because the damage is long done. I don't know if you are seeing what is trending now on NSAS. So youths are even being deprived, not to even in the western part of Nigeria. So we're not even talking about the north. So it's a government thing. So it's something that we should work on, on the legislative level, if we want a progressive nation. So that's a long one anyway, it's a long story. So let me just give it up to David, and we call it an evening.
Can I add something? I just wanted to say something, please. I really enjoy this debate. It's very, very interesting debate and session. But I want to point out something. Africans or Nigerians, let me don't speak for all, Nigerians are very religious people. I go to church. The Nigerians are very religious. I tend to agree on Stephanie's solution, whereby science should be the answer to cultural problems. Science can give solutions. If you say the government is not taking care of their people, I want you to know that politicians go to religious leaders for endorsement. Without the religious leaders, the politicians won't get the votes. Religion is so strong that it can topple the government. So I believe that Stephanie's approach, by using science to solve problems for the society, people can actually absorb it, believe in science. But if the government is going to legislate against religion, that is what happened to an emir in Kano, Sanusi. Sanusi is an emir in Kano, in the northern Nigeria, but he's westernized, he's educated. He was talking about girl child education. They had to dethrone him because the people don't want that. So religion is so strong in this country that you can't use the government to counter it. Religion will counter the government. That's what I want to say.
Okay, thank you. So David, over to you.
Amanda, I was just going to say, you all have another 15 minutes, I think. The next preparation for the next session doesn't start for another 13 minutes or so. So please continue.
Yeah, but I may need to leave because I'm participating in communicating science. So it's everything's on my head.
Oh, actually,
sorry.
Amanda, no, it's okay. For communicating science as well, all of the other regionals are still going for 13 more minutes. Everybody, I can see all the rooms. So everybody's got 13 more minutes. So yeah, you all can continue, yeah. And just to say this, This panel has been just so amazing. Just thank you all for organizing this. I wish this were in the nucleus for everybody to see. It's just so sensational. So please continue. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'd like to add on Ola's point, or you want to go?
Can I ask a question? Okay, Abigail, you can go.
Yeah.
Okay, so in regards to religion, it's very interesting because I had a personal experience this year when COVID happened, and I made my COVID testing booth in Ghana. I had people asking me, hey, this is something we can pray about that can help solve the problem. But being able to implement, a pragmatic science solution where people can actually see it, like Ola said, it made most people understand the importance of being able to implement and using science to solve problems. So the COVID testing booths, people now saw it physically, and then people also understood that the reason why the testing booth is maybe outside a hospital is so that you get tested outside the hospital, and if you're positive, they can, easily isolate you instead of having people walk into the hospital with the virus and then being tested inside the hospital. So that practical solution, being able to create something as basic as a testing booth and stuff like that, and then they're seeing and understanding the reason behind it, it kind of helps, eliminate some of the religious concerns and beliefs a little bit. So I guess we have to do more to deliberately solve some of the problems and concerns so they will know they don't always have to go and pray about everything. God equally wants us to utilize our skills, to solve the problems. And then one last thing I'm gonna say, I am in partnership with a lab in Ghana. It's called Infotech Lab. And they told me that they could make calculators, basic calculators. Can you guys believe that the entire West Africa, there is no country there that makes basic calculator? And we're in 2020. And in Ghana, the government actually used, I think it was $1.5 million to import calculators from China, to Ghana for us to use it. So I was thinking, why don't we have problem-solving skills? Why don't we have innovative skills that when there is a problem, why is our first immediate action to import something? To go to the forest? Why is it always like that? And I think it goes back to the curriculum, the education. It has to start from primary. We have to be taught problem-solving skills. We have to be taught analytical skills, critical thinking skills. Because how is it that this Infotech Lab, they're two young boys, and I don't have enough money to fund them. I'm trying to support them because they're like, they can make the calculators. They have the skills to make it. And when they presented their issue to the government, they told them no, And I think another thing is because our leaders do not believe in us. If somebody is from Africa and they made a cell phone, a calculator, other Africans are not gonna buy it or use it. We don't believe in our own talents, in our own skills, our own products. Those things have to change. We have to give people the opportunity to create, to build, and to innovate. Yeah.
Can I add in something?
Yeah, certainly.
Sorry, I talk a lot, but I think for the past 2 years, I've had so many people, so many discussion around science, technology, and innovation. Trust me, in all aspects, policy, gender. And if you're very keen at looking at STEM, that's science, technology, and whatever, the whole definition, you will see the problem is how we look at science. And science, we look at it as life, applied sciences, and we forget the foundation of social sciences, which is still science. And I believe all these issues you're speaking of, social sciences have a very key contribution to these issues. And it's a conversation we need to keep on checking ourselves of, okay, how are we incorporating social sciences? If you look at religious issues, if you look at ethical issues, if you look at even leadership, the social sciences has a very big part. And just two questions to leave ourselves with, I think it's when you talking of gender, which is very key for me, is I think we've done so much work with diversity, but it's the question of inclusivity. And that's how we're going to close this gender gap. And Abigail also put in a point of STEM curriculum. I don't know how to phrase this question, but okay, I think there needs to be a big shift, because if you look, I've had 2 people from Liberia and DRC saying that they have to start over again when they go to international, for international studies, because it's not recognized. So what does that tell us about our system?
I just want to, I just want to ask something. I'm enjoying this debate, but that Africans don't believe in their solutions, I wouldn't want to agree with that, because there's a lot of innovations going around in Nigeria here that are made in Nigeria and people use. But the problem is about our leadership, and why? Follow the money. Follow the money. It's all about the money. If the leaders empower the grassroots, people that are not among the elites, I have that problem. My solutions are not among the elites. They don't know me. If I was a child of maybe a big politician or among the ruling class, I would have gotten support for my project. So it's about the money. If you empower those other people, they make money. They don't want them to make money. So they would rather import it from China so that they can make the money. So empowering others enables others to make money. So it is about the money. The elites only want to have the cake of the pie. They want to have the big pie. So that is what has been happening.
I'd like to say something, to add something to what everybody is saying, particularly going back to what Abby said, the example of calculators. I'll assure you, Abby, it's not because Ghanaians cannot make calculators. You'd be surprised. Like Ola said, the innovativeness of all the young people, in spite of how difficult this environment is incredible. And I'm a Kenyan I was largely educated here. I went abroad for a couple of years. I came back. I don't know of any more innovative people than Kenyans, to be honest.
Stephanie,
And they thrive in spite of the system. It's not so much that, sorry. Anyway,
okay,
so
we can make the calculators. I just wanted to do that. I did not say that we cannot.
No, we absolutely can. And to be honest, it's not so much that our first thought is to import. It's a very challenging environment to do business. It's a very challenging environment to innovate, because the government structures that we do still need, government infrastructure, the support, the funding systems, and those unfortunately lie in the hands of all these policymakers who barely understand science as is, or the importance of it, or even can articulate what is needed for our society today. And so one of the things that we can all attest to in our different African countries is the prominence of China today in infrastructural development and what that means to our local industries. It's the decimation of any hope whatsoever of the local industry thriving. And part of the reason they've been so successful is because our leaders, and I know, some of us don't think government is important, but I honestly do think that a dedicated government is so, so, so important. Unfortunately, this government is the one that's negotiating with, the foreign entities that are coming in, but they're not negotiating so much to have our place at the table. Often we are not involved. We become, the consumers downstream that are barely thought of as they're making these decisions. And that's why we end up, importing matchboxes and razor blades from China, not so much because our people cannot make it, but because the policymakers are unfortunately politicians that are not really thinking about the youth or the future. They're thinking about re-election, and they're thinking about money for campaigns. And that's as far as it goes, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah, Susan, so I would like to cite a true life example, just to buttress all you have said. So it's not like we cannot make this. We can make it. We have wonderful, brilliant minds.
Yep.
But you look at STEM education or STEM, it cuts across the full sector. So now they are importing this. You look at how much is it to produce one of that in the country. It still boils down to our policies. So for example, we were trying to make these STEM makerspace kits, and we looked at the cost of like buying filaments, doing all that. It cost 13,800 naira. Now, you can buy that same similar thing in China for 2,000 naira. So if I were to bring this, like say I take it to the market and say, yeah, it's locally manufactured, I'm proud of my work. Trust me, you as a mother would prefer buying the one for China from that they imported from China for 2,000 because it's really it does the same thing. It's so cheap. So you can see that our industries have already indirectly been collapsed. Virtually half of the things that are used in West Africa are imported. It's sad to say. So it also boils down to us producing this for ourselves, having wonderful policies that are very flexible for local makers and innovators like this. So yeah, I really buy what you are saying. So it is deeper than what we think. That's just what I notice about this.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Desiree has asked two really important questions. I think the first one that we kind of missed was, how do we, Desiree, I could be getting this wrong, but it had to do with how do you ensure that the religious people can either, I don't know, believe in something. Could you just articulate it so I don't mutter it?
I think I asked like how to get religious people that are more religious connected to scientific truths as well in a friendly way that doesn't seem threatening, but makes them feel empowered and connected to whatever their potential or purpose is versus defensive. I think I said it more articulately in the chat, but that's the idea.
I think, for example, if there can be a community biolab that can produce drugs cheaper than that you get in the market, they will not go to the church to pray for healing. Do you understand? They go to the church to pray for healing because they can't afford the drugs. But if there's a community biolab, that is using synthetic biology to produce cheap drugs, you can actually influence religious people to believe in science rather than, because religion is opium to the soul, hope for a better tomorrow. You go and pray to God that there will be food on your table. You go and pray to God that there will be healing because you don't want to fall sick, you don't have money to go to the hospital. So I think if science can actually solve the problem that they are looking for in churches or mosques, we can get more people into science and religion will have less influence.
Okay, yeah, so it's been a wonderful conversation. We are wrapping up. Thank you all so much. In case if you would like to continue this conversation on the side, please, the Slack channel is really interactive. Just inbox any of them and they'll really be happy to shed more light and their perspectives on it. So thank you so much.
Let's take a photo too before we all sign off, if that's okay.
Yes.
So yeah, if everybody can turn their videos
so please
on.
Turn on your camera.
Yeah, if you can turn your camera on. Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much again, Olaf and Nadine for organizing, and all of you. This was so amazing. It was so great to just to observe and be a part of this. So thank you all so much. Hi, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone.